Like the moment right now.
Yeah.
All right, here we are.
All right.
Mild technical difficulties that we handled. We're good.
Yes. And I'm checking the LinkedIn event on my phone to see. It says waiting for broadcast. So I guess we're going to go live on there soon.
Okay. Excellent. 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 I don't ordinarily do that. I
Oh,
have
it's
not
happening.
that. All right, we're good.
Yep.
Perfect. All
We are
technical
good.
difficulties are worked out, my friend.
Awesome.
Good news.
Fantastic.
So
Fantastic.
Omar Khatib, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And shout out to our mutual friend, Robin,
Robin
for,
Montoya.
for making the recommendation and, of course, connecting us. Yeah, Robin Montoya is a fantastic, fantastic person. So it's great to get connected.
Such a good human being. Yeah,
Very
she
much so.
answered the call. I put a post out, which I'll get into here in a second. I wanted to do a brief intro of you. So you have your name and Gentem Health. I know you are the head of growth at
Yes.
Gentem.
Yeah.
You're right now in Silicon Valley, right? That's where that is.
Yeah. We're based out of Silicon Valley. So maybe a good place to start. Should I give a little sort of high level on
Please, yeah.
myself? Yeah. So my name's Omar. I'm the head of growth at Gentem Health. Background: born and raised in El Paso, Texas. Went and studied biology and chemistry in college. Like most people, I was pre med. Unlike most people, I actually stuck to it and went to medical school. Went to medical school at Texas Tech University, but halfway through, realized it just wasn't for me, and I decided to leave. So that was a big change in my career and identity. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I did door to door sales for a year and was trying to get into medical technology, medical devices, and then was lucky enough to get in at a great company pre IPO called Mazor Robotics. And they were the first robotic spine company. And I, at the time, didn't realize it, but I was being mentored and groomed by some of the legends in our industry in robotic spine surgery: Christopher Sells, Tim Morawski, Chris Prentice, and that was really my jumping off point to get into marketing. And from there, I went to a robotic aesthetic company. I started my own B2C company that's in fashion inventions. I went to Petro Medical, which was one of the first predictive health companies. And now I'm at Gentem. And before I tell you a little about Gentem, the kind of tying theme to all these companies is I only go to companies that have truly disruptive technologies. Like they're going to change the way something is done. I don't go to Me Too companies. I go to places where they need a market to be engineered, a new category to be created, and the status quo is going to be challenged. And so Gentem is really one of the most exciting companies that I've been a part of just because of the mission. It was founded by a Stanford educated physician, Fisayo Shitelu, and a former Facebook software engineer, Manny Akintayo. Their connection was the Manny was the roommate of Fisayo's brother, and that's how they got connected. And what they're solving is that in the world of private medical practices, you go to your doctor's office, right? That's the only business in America where you don't know when you're going to get paid or how much you're going to get paid. So when your doctor sees you, puts all this work to, let's say, do a procedure, see you in the office, etc., and they send the bill to the insurance company won't pay them on time. They'll often pay them less. And it's because it's so complicated. Like it's not just as simple as sending an invoice. There's codes involved and these rules that change all the time. And so what Fisayo and Manny did was they built a platform where we plug into private medical practices to essentially automate, maximize, and simplify this whole revenue cycle. So we can help these practices get paid faster and get paid more. So that way they can focus on actually delivering care and not being stressed out by the burden of running a small business, right? And the last thing I would say is that since we're a very data-driven company, we've recruited the best in the industry from Amazon and Google and Facebook, and also people who've spent decades in healthcare. So we also build financial products specific to private medical practices. So if you want to expand your practice, usually you go and get a loan out of the bank. For us, we give the physician an option where instead of a high interest loan, they can actually use their existing business and say, hey, I'm doing these procedures in the future. Can you advance payment to me now and I'll pay later? And so we do that. And so we're helping a lot of small businesses invest in themselves, expand. And so it's a great mission, great company, and one of those things I'm very, very proud to be a part of.
That's
So
awesome. That's awesome.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
congratulations on that. So, I mean, it's interesting because our whole topic is going to be networking. You just mentioned like 12 people that you've met along the way that have gotten you where you are today, which is cool.
Absolutely. And I was very excited to kick this off with you, Alan, because I think networking it's one of those terms that when you hear it, people kind of roll their eyes like networking. It's like, what is it? But there is an actual system to doing it. I like to think that I found a way to sort of do it at scale. And over the years, I've been fortunate enough, just like how you and I met on LinkedIn, that a lot of people through my content, my videos and articles reach out to me for help. And it's always usually the same question, which is I'm changing careers or I'm about to start a career. I don't have I didn't graduate Stanford Business School or Harvard MBA, or I don't have this or that. And so I can't get a job, or how do I do this?
Right.
And so I've put together sort of a system that I think is helpful for everybody. And more importantly, not only gets you to the goal that you have, but a system that exposes you to opportunities that you never thought existed.
Right. Well, I think and before you get into it, Omar, because I want to dive deep into that, but there's certain things that I know about you just through the research that you didn't mention that I think also kind of, collectively together, because you talked about your career, which is great, but you have, you write a blog,
Yes.
you have, a ton of followers on Medium, you have great articles on you have a YouTube channel called Mind Read, which I got lost in there the other day because I love to read and I love, the content that you put out on YouTube just on reading. I mean, a quick story. I was downstairs. I came upstairs, and my son said, "Hey, Dad, quick story for you. Did you realize that Alexander the Great came within 10 feet of Darius the Third when he was trying to, conquer Persia?" And I said, "I didn't know that." And I said, "How do we know that?" And he said, "Because he brought 2 writers with him everywhere he went." And I said, "Well, did you know that he brought a library with him when he went?" Because I learned that on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, the
And
crazy factoid.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But I think all those things. I mean, you have so many different things that you do, and just from a networking perspective, that just adds so many little aspects to your ability to network, which I think is cool. And a lot of people don't. I don't know they always recognize that that's an important piece, is to have other avenues by which to connect.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
important. So today is all about networking. We want to thank Robin Montoya. It was about a week ago she introduced us. We're here today. So talk to us about, you were going to talk to us about scale. You were going to talk to us about deploying influence at scale and how to attract the best opportunities. So I'll let you talk about that.
Absolutely. By the way, I can hear you very clearly. Is your mic your phone right now? I'm just curious. What's your mic right now?
No, it's, what is my mic? I don't know what my mic is. It's right here.
Okay, got it.
It's clear.
Yeah, now it's clear. Okay, it's better now. Okay. So let's talk about this, because when people usually they look at what I'm doing, they're like, I can't start a YouTube channel, I can't do all this. You don't have to. And let's kind of define what networking is. I think networking, in my definition, is you meet somebody and you understand what's important to them, what their goals are, right, and what they're trying to accomplish, and then you try and help guide them to a place that's going to get them closer to achieving that. And then they reciprocate. That's what networking is, right? But at the core of that is, does somebody know who you are, right? Do they recognize you, And so I think what I tell people is that the more you put yourself out there, the whole idea about networking, getting a job, doing business, a lot of it's based on trust, right? And trust has to do with familiarity, right? And so many people, when they meet me, they feel like they already know me because they've somehow consumed content from me online, right? And so let's take your average person who, let's say, is not very active on LinkedIn. They don't make videos and everything. So how do they get started networking? And let's just put it as a simple example. They want to get a job. Let's say somebody who, let's make it really difficult, just graduated from college. Let's say they have a degree that's not matching. Let's say they have a degree in, I don't know, engineering or literature, but they want to go into marketing, right? So their degree doesn't even match the thing that they're trying to get into. Even harder. And they went to, let's say, a regular school. They didn't go to an Ivy League. Even harder. What did they do? So what I recommend to people do is this on LinkedIn. CEP. That's going to be the acronym. CEP, the mnemonic. So let's break that down. C stands for connect. Every day, like religion, you get up, you brush your teeth, maybe you say a little prayer. You're going to get on LinkedIn from your phone and search the person that you want to be or work with. So in our case here, if somebody wants to be a marketer, they're going to look for marketing managers, VPs of marketing, right? Marketing directors. And if possible, within a specific industry, you should have some kind of focus, right? So let's say they're trying to get into biotech. So they connect with all biotech marketers. Every day they have a goal from Monday through Friday. They're going to send a connection request to 20, 30, 40 people. I always tell people, like, set a goal of 30, like something really aggressive. No note, because the thing about sending a message in your connection request is if you know the person or if there's something specific to that person, you can mention the note, do it. Otherwise, don't do it, because that's one extra step. Someone has to look at it and they're like, well, I'm going to accept this request, and they send me a message. Do I respond to this? Most people won't. Just send the connection request because people are trying to build their network. So that's the C in connect. So now you're doing that, let's just say it's 20 people a day times 5. I'm not very good at math. That's 100 people a week, right? That's going to be 400 people a month, okay? That's where you get started. And just like flossing, you start with one tooth, you end up doing it all. So you might start with 20, but you end up doing 40 or 50 a day. The E stands with engage, right? So you want people to become familiar with your name. You want them to recognize it, but you also want the LinkedIn algorithm to do some work for you. So let's say you connect with a bunch of marketing people. You go and look at their activity and see what they're posting about. Go and like a few of their posts. If there's something that's interesting to you, leave a comment. If there's something that you know a lot about, maybe leave a longer comment, but maybe even leave a short, thoughtful comment. Because then the LinkedIn algorithm says, oh, these two people just got connected. One is commenting and liking that other person's post. We should show more of that content to the person, but also the reverse. If that person who commented does a post, we should show the post to that person. So now you're getting your name known, and you're creating reciprocity. Someone does a post, a few people like it, but then somebody leaves a thoughtful comment. You've now made an impression, a positive one. And now let's get to the last one, which is P is post, which is you should find ways to add value. And you don't have to create a video like me. You don't have to write articles. All those things are great, but you should document things along the way, things that you learn. And even if you do something as simple as this, Alan, let's say once a week you say, on Wednesdays, I'm going to read an article on marketing from the Harvard Business Review. I'm going to take the article, share it, but then I'm going to add a few sentences, just so, like my takeaways from it. You do that for a month or two, the people you've connected with, you are now curating content for them, which is what billion, trillion-dollar companies in the world are doing these days. They're curating information like Google, and it doesn't matter that the Harvard Business Review wrote it. That person learned something directly from you, so you've added value. And by doing this, now you're creating a network where people understand what you're interested in. They understand that you have goodwill, and you stay on their mind. And if you do this at scale, you get better and better at it. So you start with sharing articles to maybe writing posts to writing articles yourself. And then interesting things happen where someone you may not have thought of says, we want to hire somebody, and this young lady is writing these really interesting articles in marketing. Why don't we talk to her? She has no experience, but she has a great attitude. Because that was me. When I tried to extend my career, I didn't have a fancy background or a lot of experience. So I said, I should just show my value before the interview. And by doing that, people got to know about me. I discovered new opportunities, new things, and I created a system that exposed me to things that I was not aware of. That, to me, is how you do networking at scale.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about and can you hear me okay? I had a couple comments say that they can't hear me very well.
I can hear you fine. You sound distant, but I can hear you. It sounds like you're on speaker in a car. Yeah.
Just struggling.
Yeah.
All right.
If you click the cam mic icon and go to audio, look at what's under the mic, because it might be something else. And I only know this because I've used StreamYard before, so I know what you're dealing with. But for those who are listening, you can drop some comments or some questions in the comments. We're seeing them. So like Daniel Cheatham, thank you so much for the comment and the heads up.
I don't think it's not ready.
Yeah, that's okay. We can hear you. It's just it's not perfect, but we can hear you. It's not like bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about your comment is that you said don't don't write anything specific in the LinkedIn request, and I'm curious about that. So if you do have a connection, let's say you're reaching out to people who maybe graduated from the same university that you graduated from, even though it's not Ivy League, or maybe there's some mutual connection or something like that, but the person said, I don't want to broker the introduction, but you can reach out to them maybe and mention my name. Would you say do that, or do you still say
You can
we're
do
talking about
that.
quantity?
Yeah, you can do that, but it just depends. Because keep in mind, if you if whatever you just did, I think you're going to sound much better. By the way, um, whatever you end up doing, so leave it to sales and marketing people to ruin anything. So with LinkedIn, a lot of sales and marketing
Exactly.
people, oh, that's so much better. I don't know
Right
what
on.
yeah, I don't know what you did. That's a lot better.
Perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Don't feel bad. I've had mic issues where I'm like, I got this expensive mic and then I have to switch over to a headphone.
It's
Yeah.
down there now.
No, it's all good. Yeah. So people are getting messages all the time, and if you go higher up the food chain, so a director at one company versus a VP at a big company, like more and more people want a piece of that person for some favor, for something, right? So you have to keep that in mind. So a lot of times for me, I think the easiest thing to do, your goal is just to connect with them, right? Your goal shouldn't be connect with them and have them reply to a message. It's too many things. You
Yeah.
want to optimize for the easiest thing first, which is get connected to them. So send a connection request, no message. As soon as they connect, then send them a message. Because a lot of times someone will accept your request, but they don't realize that there's a message or they forget to respond. I hired one of the guys I hired personally. I sent him a connection request with the message in the connection request saying, hey, I think you'd be a great fit for this role we're hiring. He actually didn't see it until I replied back. And I was like, hey, did you see the message above? He's like, oh my God, I didn't know. So I would optimize for connecting with a person. Don't put a message in, send them a message afterwards. Now, let's think about how do you increase the chances they connect. Let's say it's a VP of company, they get a lot of requests. Reciprocity is a hell of a piece of persuasion. So meaning I do something nice for you, you'll do something nice for me. So how do you front load that? So a lot of times with really famous authors, influencers on LinkedIn, let's say authors, a lot of times they don't get like hundreds of likes or comments on their posts. I'll go and look at a post that this person made, or maybe even an old article of theirs that has no comments. I'll leave a comment on there, like maybe a long and thoughtful one about something in there. Maybe ask them a question where they have to reply back to me. Now they actually know my name and they're like, oh, this guy commented on my article. That means a lot to me because they wrote that for a reason. They wanted it to have some influence with people.
Right.
And then I send them a connection request, which they'll accept right away. Right? That's kind of the trick to it.
I love it. Yeah, I was going to ask you. I mean, because you had Al Ramadan on one of the
That's
interviews that you
exactly
did.
what I did.
That's how you got Al.
Yes, that is exactly. Yeah, he was actually the most difficult one to get, surprisingly.
What a great guest. What
He's a great guest. Yeah, yeah.
And that was exactly the process that you did. So walk us through that process. What did you do with Al?
Well, that was a more. I think more. It wasn't as involved, but I think things happened like coincidentally for me. So I had reviewed Play Bigger. I think because when people get their books reviewed, like that doesn't happen very often unless they're a celebrity. So that the publisher, somebody says like I think they shared the video of Play Bigger with them and everything. And then I reached out to him. The other thing is that when you reach out to people, everyone's asking for something.
Yeah.
Everyone is asking for something. So don't reach out asking for something. I know. And by the way, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you're asking for help. That's fine. But I try my best to give them something beforehand, like comment on their post, reshare their article, do something that would be valuable to them, and then reach out with an ask, right? So when I reached out to him, I had already like promoted his work, I talked about his group, left comments. I'd been like for a few weeks doing this, and then it was appropriate to ask. You have to be patient with these things, right? I'll tell you the biggest person that I got connected with, who I need to have my podcast, but I haven't mustered up the courage to ask him. Although I have his cell phone. But are you familiar with Scott Adams?
Oh, yeah. You're a huge Scott Adams fan.
Yeah.
I mean,
So Scott is a major author and celebrity. He's got a huge following, and I spent almost like a year and a half, 2 years, like just supporting him in his work one, because I got value out of it, right? But I wanted to give him something of value before I even like care to ask for anything. And the only thing I wanted was just like a little time with him just to get advice about how I should write my own book. And I mean, he was extremely kind. Like he sent me his cell phone. We FaceTime a few times. And we kind of have this sort of like, somewhat of a like online friendship now,
Right.
which, so I think that's the other thing, is that there's nothing wrong with asking for help, but you should always try and figure out, how do I help this other person? Right. And literally asking them. So another tip of networking people forget is you can't mind read. You should never guess what the other person wants. And I just did this with somebody earlier who's a very widely followed exec on LinkedIn. I just asked them very directly, hey, like, thank you so much for giving me some advice. Thanks for getting on the call, blah, blah. But look, I tell them everything good that's ever happened in my life happened as a result of somebody helping me. And I always try and pay that forward. You seem like you got everything that you need. You don't need anything from me. But if a month from now you said, man, talking to Omar Khatib was the best thing ever because he helped me with XYZ, what would that be? And I just let their mind go with it. Because
Right.
you'll discover a lot. So I asked Scott Adams that, and Scott, he's got a multi-million-dollar empire with Dilbert. There's all like he's made it. He doesn't need any more money. And
No,
so
you have all of his books on your bookshelf. I have
yeah,
all of his books on my
and
bookshelf. I mean,
and so what he told me, and I learned from this, not just for him but others. He said, look, at this point in my career, like what's most valuable and important to me is like impact. So getting people to share and promote my work. So I do that all the time now. I
yeah,
make a consistent effort of that.
yeah,
Daniel
yeah,
Cheatham says, "Woo."
yeah. Yeah, the consistent application of tactical engagement and make their deal. Well, and that was one of the things. Thank you for that, Daniel, by the way. But one of the things in your Al Ramadan conversation was, go from lizard brain to emotional.
Yeah.
You were talking about that specifically, and to try to make that emotional connection to somebody by supporting them, by looking to help them. I mean, that's a clear-cut way to get somebody to want to try to figure out how to help you, is by you figuring out how to help them first.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I think this is like an old traditional way of doing business, which is try and be helpful to others.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer about this. Like, just if you're just nice, and it does take time. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like me trying to mentor, I have a spreadsheet now. I have like over 30 people that I mentor, like not in a paid program, like just mentoring for goodwill.
Right.
Plus the number of people who reach out to me just for advice on marketing. I try my best to just be nice, because when you do this, you've essentially employed a bunch of people for yourself. That at any moment, if you need a job, you need help, you need advice, someone's gonna be like, yeah, that guy actually did X, Y, and Z for me. Even if it's just commenting on an article. There's like, here's another great way, and I think Alan, you'd really appreciate this. Here's something I tell people all the time. One is, like, for every like one great recruiter like yourself, there's like a bunch of really bad ones. Like, let's just put that there first. But I tell people, having a relationship with a recruiter is one of the most important things in your career. One of the most important relationships. But you don't know who's going to be great and who's not. Anytime a recruiter sends me a message and they're trying to poach me away from my job, which, by the way, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. I don't just kick it back and say I'm not interested. I actually go back and say, hey, not interested. I really appreciate you keeping in mind, but let me try and help you out here. Tell me who you're looking for. And if you want, we can have a quick 5-minute call, or you can send me some information, and let me see if I know somebody in my network, and I'll connect you, because now you're helping this person out and you're helping somebody else out. And a lot of times, let's say there's a VP role, VP of marketing role. There are people who I send it to who I don't, at least don't try and guess, but most of the time they're not looking. But the fact that I thought of them out of the blue, and I'm like, hey, there's this great leadership role. I think you'd be a great fit. You'd be interested. Many times with them, they're people will be like, no, actually, it's not a good time. But I've now just created goodwill where, again, this whole point of reciprocity at scale. And that took me like 5 minutes to do, not even.
Right. Yeah, it's such an important thing. Such an important thing. And I think it's missed on a lot of people. But yeah, I think, one of the things that I've seen in a lot of your posts is language. And, you talk about how to position things. I mean, you're a content guy, you're a marketing guy, so that matters. But so many people miss that too. So I'm curious from your perspective, when you are networking with people, when you are reaching out and trying to connect, how important is that language? How important is it when you're asking, how can you help? Or when you're making the ask, how do you advise people or how do you mentor people on positioning that? Because it is a position.
Yeah, no, it is a position. I think language is incredibly important, especially, when you have less words to say something, those each word counts. But I think very simple, direct language is the best way to go for marketing, for talking to other people.
Yeah.
And I think just getting to the point, although brevity is not my thing sometimes, I'll admit, but I think just being very direct and vulnerable, right? So if you need help, say it. Like, I've messaged, and sometimes people don't, they're busy, they don't reply, which is fine. A lot of times they don't see the message, so I've sent a message to certain execs where it's like, hey, I admire your career, blah blah blah. Here's my situation. I would really appreciate like getting some help from you, just if I can talk to you for like 5-10 minutes. I don't hear anything back. Sometimes after a few weeks, I'll just reply back to the message and say, hey, just making sure, like, I don't know if you saw my message. And a lot of times they didn't see my message, right? So you have to be brave. You have to be brave and vulnerable and treat people like individuals. So a lot of times people have a bad experience in networking. Let's just say, like, the worst case scenario, you reach out to somebody for help, and not only do they not help you, but they're very uncivil in rejecting you. You should not let that one person now determine every other person that's going to follow them that you would potentially like to reach out to. The human mind likes to go to negative things that happened in the past. We always forget the good things that happen. We really focus on that one bad experience, right? So you have to keep that in mind. And I for those who are very shy, I'll tell you, Alan, of all the the books I read and things I do, I've realized that you get to author your reality a lot more than you realize, just based on how you perceive things and how you get to determine what something's going to be. So when I lost my first job, I could have looked at it as like, this company screwed me over, I have bills to pay, everything. Or I reframed it and I said, this is the best thing ever, because in the movie that is my life, this is the scene where I get laid off my job and I go find not only a better job, but I make double the money. That's exactly what happened. I almost doubled my salary. Not quite, but it was at least a 60% increase,
Nice
which is
work.
still significant. Yeah. So I tell people who are really shy about networking, I'm like, look, let's say I'm a magical genie and I say, hey, you're going to get your dream job. You're going to get the pay that you want. It's going to be a job like you're going to wake up with so much excitement every day to do. You'll pinch yourself because you can't believe it. But to get to that job, you're going to have to get rejected 20 times. But on the 21st time, you're going to get this job. If you knew that, you would go happily, as quickly as possible, to go and get rejected as quickly. And every no, you'd be like, one more closer to the yes.
Exactly.
That's how you have to look at it. Because then with that attitude, you carry that confidence and energy into engagements, into the way you talk to people. This is why, like, recruiters have a great advice, which is like, you should not, like, the best time to look for a job is while you're still employed, not when you're unemployed. And it's not because being unemployed is a bad thing. It's because when you're unemployed, you get more desperate and needy, and it comes off in interviews. And nobody wants to hire a needy, desperate person.
Right. Nobody.
Yeah.
Literally nobody.
It's just like dating.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I love all of what you just said. So I think one thing that's interesting, you and I are sales marketing guys. I have short-term memory loss. So the bad stuff that happens, I forget it pretty quickly anyway.
That's great.
So it works to my advantage, but we also have incredibly thick skin. You have thick skin, I have thick skin. It's like, it just rolls off of me. You're going to say no, but it doesn't matter, because the next person's going to say yes, or the next person's going to say yes. I think when you were talking about the very shy people, those are the people that internalize it. Those are the people that have a really hard time with it, and might feel like they got kicked in the gut and can't get back up. But I love the way you positioned it by saying every loss is closer to that win. And that's exactly how people need to look at it. Getting rejected is just one step closer to that win.
100%, 100%. And whether you believe in God or that or whatever higher power you believe in, this is kind of how life is set up. This is the game. It's
Yep.
not supposed to be easy. It's almost like like when you launch an entrepreneurial venture, or let's say even an artistic one. The resistance is there for a reason, because not everybody can get in. It has to be there because you have to push and work through it. Right? It's just like, diamonds need pressure to become, to become diamonds. The same thing in this. There is no money in easy things.
Right.
It's supposed to be hard.
Exactly. Yeah. So the article that you wrote on Medium, one of the articles that you wrote on Medium, back to how much words matter. I love the title of it, because the title of that article is "God is what's left when everything else is gone," and you immediately said, how many times did you rewrite the first part of that article? You rewrote it like a dozen times, I think. But you talked about simplicity, brevity, credibility, consistency, novelty, sound and texture, speak aspirationally, all of those things that you're talking about right now. From a networking perspective, all those things matter. I mean, they matter in life generally, but they matter in networking. And people they put it into a bucket of, I got to network. Ugh, I hate this. But if you look at it as, I got to breathe oxygen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same. That's how you move forward.
Exactly. And again, talking about language, if your thoughts will become words, and then those words become actions become habits, those habits become your character becomes a destiny, which is the point is what you say is what's going to become real. So if you say you suck at networking, if you say you hate it, that's what you're going to get. It's very simple. It is very, very simple. And the way you need to see it is that, again, I'm not a religious person. I'm not even Christian. But in the Bible, there is a verse that says, the fool is the precursor to the Savior, meaning you're going to look like an idiot at the beginning. Like, everybody sucks at it. Everybody sucks at sales at the beginning. Everybody sucks at marketing. Michael Jordan sucked at basketball at the beginning. Like, everybody's is bad as a beginner, right? Yeah. But you have to see this as a journey that you're getting better incrementally every day, right? And I think that the other thing that people make the mistake of doing is comparing themselves to others. You can't do that. It's like a science experiment. You don't compare two different variables. You have to compare yourself to who you were the day before and the week before. Yep. That's it. And it's patience. I think older professionals get that, but younger professionals out of college, like, some of these young kids I'm mentoring, like, one of them called me the other day. He's like, dude, I'm so, I've lost like motivation and everything. Job search is hard and everything. I'm like, how long have you been doing that for? And he's like, it's been 3.5 months. I'm like, that's nothing, man. Right. It's like, it's not, so you have to be patient, and, like one guy, one of the guys I'm mentoring, his name's Dan. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. Yeah, Dan Sokolov. He's been trying to get into marketing for over like a good year, and he was working in finance. I think he was at JP Morgan and everything. He just got a fantastic marketing job.
Nice. And
it's because the guy just did not give up, and it was ups and downs, but that's what it takes. Yep. People want to pay for that, like, quick tip, like fast track to success. Like, yeah, you can get tips and tricks and everything, but at the end of the day, it's just it's hard work and getting creative, talking to the right people, checking out things like this, and sort of reframing how you approach things.
Right. Yeah, I know you work out all the time. I mean, you can't expect to have six-pack, after working out for 4 weeks.
No, definitely not.
It takes work. It takes work. Everything worth having does. Yeah, you mentioned be kind earlier, and I have to do a shout out to my buddy Brian Moore, who just 5 minutes before we got on here said kindness has to be one of the most underrated things in the world. It absolutely
really is. It
There's
really
no
is.
reason to not be kind when people reach out to you and try to network with you. No reason at all.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like I really don't. And you know, there's somebody I used to work with who said, yeah, he's an Israeli guy. He said, "It's easy to be hard, but hard to be easy," and it's so true. And especially
Yeah.
like again, like I'll speak on as a man. Like guys, like we're used to this concept. We see it in film and movies. Like, oh, you got to be tough and yell at people and stuff. It's just like, you know, it's easy to be a jerk. That's not a hard thing to do. It's not particularly unique.
Right.
I think what's, for those who are leaders, or people who are mentoring, it's okay to be hard. I'm very hard on the people that I coach, but I also supplement it with a lot of kindness. Where like I kind of give them a good licking, as they say down in the South. But I also remind them like, hey, like I'm being this hard on you because I believe in you, and the problem is that I believe in you more than you believe in yourself right now. We can't have it that way,
Right.
right? So I think that especially in these days, like we already live in an extremely uncivil time. I think we can do better with a lot of civility, and just remember that people are just desperate for just an ounce of encouragement.
Yeah.
Like, and I get choked up even thinking about it because I know how a lot of people treat themselves and the way they talk to themselves, like in their own head. And like just, there's people like I can hear them on the phone, or I see in their eyes when I tell, like, they're trying to change careers and they need some advice and everything. I just tell them I'm like, look, I believe in you. I'm like, you're a smart, capable person. Like you'll get this done. No one tells them that, let alone
Yeah.
themselves. So you never know how much just an ounce of kindness is going to go, because it's like the one thing that can turn somebody around. Like they
Yep.
need it,
Yeah, I think and when we're talking about networking, like at some point in time, that new college graduate is going to be that VP that's getting, whatever LinkedIn is in, 15 years, 20 years, whenever they get to that level. They've got to remember that, and I think that's huge as well. Like you're going to pay it forward at some point in time. So do your best to, pay it forward today to those that might need your help as a new college graduate. Maybe the numbers are going to be less today than they will in 15 years. But just remember, those that helped you along the way. I think that's also an important point.
No, absolutely. And again, look, I'll give you a great example of something that happened this week that this kind of like pulls this whole thing together about being nice to others. Over a year and a half ago, like when I was at Petro, this is actually 2 years ago now, or three. There's an intern there. He was not my intern, but he had an interest in marketing, right? So I said, hey, like if you want to learn about marketing, like I'll spend some time, I'll teach you. So I started doing that, right? Became like a mentor. He was one of my mentees. I love this kid, and he has a best friend, right? I realized that these guys are in San Francisco. They don't have family. I invite them over from my home for dinner, right? I become friends with his friend, right? And we developed this like relationship over the last couple of years. And so anytime that his friend needs help, he gives me a call for advice. And I get on the phone, I do it. Like I provide whatever guidance I can, right? Well, lo and behold, this guy happens to work with Jeffrey Moore, the author of Crossing the Chasm, and talks to him about me. And Jeffrey Moore had like read some of my articles, but this kid, talks to Jeff about it. And then a week ago, I'm tweeting about Crossing the Chasm, and he tells Jeff Moore, hey, I really think you should meet with Omar. And then I end up having a meeting with one of the authors I like really look up to a lot the other day, right? Like, so you never know who's going to keep you in mind, right?
Exactly.
And again, I think, to kind of like bring it full circle, like when it comes to networking, I think, yeah, part of it is you're trying to accomplish a goal, which is, let's say you want to get a new job. Along the way, the mistake is people network to go straight to that goal, which is I'm going to network because I just want to get a job. It's not how it works.
Right.
Right? The way it works is that you need steps to get there, right? You need to talk to some people, get some advice, along the way of getting that advice, you also share your stories to them as to what you're looking for. They keep that in mind, right? Then you kind of keep following that thread of getting advice from people, connecting with people, learning what's important to them, trying to add value, because you're trading favors on your way to getting that job. But on that path of trading favors, again, I'm going to comment and like some articles. I'll do this. I get someone on the phone. They give me some advice. Thank you. Hey, what's important to you? Okay, let's just say that I'm trying to interview this person on a podcast. Oh, I happen to know them, right? You're trading favors, but along the way to that goal, you have a system now where other opportunities might present themselves that you may not have ever thought of, ever. And I think that's kind of the magic of life, which is you have to just do things with goodwill, and try to put your focus on others. There's a famous saying: if you help enough people in life get what they want, you will get what you want out of life.
No doubt about it. I wish that knowledge had come earlier in life. At least for me. I don't know how early you knew that, but it took me a while to understand that and to live that. But it's hugely beneficial once you do have that epiphany.
Absolutely. Now, if you don't mind me, I'm gonna kind of like turn the tables a bit, but
Sure.
like for you as a recruiter, like when you think about networking, what do you advise some of the people you coach in terms of how they should think about networking?
Well, it's exactly what we're talking about now. I mean, you have to give, not give to get. And, that's a quote that I know everybody has heard before too. You don't give to get, you have to give. And when you're out there networking, I've seen as recently as like within the last 2 weeks, there was a company in Phoenix that shut down completely. There were 37 employees, and they had a group. All 37 employees would get together on Zoom, and they would have conversations about, I saw this opportunity, I saw this opportunity, I saw this opportunity. Hey, Robin, I think this one's good for you. Hey, Omar, I think you should probably apply to this one. And that's all they did amongst themselves. But then as soon as their network started to grow and they started to meet new people, they started bringing those people to, their own network. And they said, look, can you come talk to this group about how to write a resume? Can you come talk to this group about how to interview? Can you come talk to this group about the jobs that you have available? Because I think there's some people in our group that might qualify. And they were just a cohesive unit of people helping one another. But that could be one person too. That could just be one person saying, look, I'm out there looking for a new job. I'm gonna come across things, or I'm gonna have conversations with recruiters that aren't matches for me. Mm-hmm. Like you were just saying about, taking that recruiter call and saying, look, dude, I'm not looking, but I know a lot of people that you might be interested in knowing. Even if you're unemployed, it sounds weird, it sounds foreign, but the more people you help, the more people are going to help you.
That's exactly right. And I think a big part of this is also energy, right? And so you have to, we lose our imaginations as we get older, but you have to use it. And so when I talk about energy, let's, again, classic example, I'm trying to get a job, right? Let's say you're unemployed. So if you get that one job interview, you best believe no matter how together you have it, you're going to come off just desperate as hell in that interview. You're going to do the song and dance, whatever it's going to take, right? And it's not going to work. So I tell people, I was like, look, you're not going to get interviews right away. So reach out to people in companies and positions that you would like to be in. Get them on the phone for some advice. Then recruiters, just start talking to people, because your brain doesn't know the difference between talking to these people who are at a company that you're just getting advice from versus talking to these other people at a company you're interviewing from. It's all the same thing. And so when you get into a rhythm of like being relaxed, practicing telling your story, talking about things, because they're going to ask you more or less the same questions you'll likely get in a screening, then you sort of start developing this momentum. And then instead of reaching out to people for advice, you generate some momentum, some energy to find, let's say, a job and say, I'm going to reach out directly to the hiring manager for this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's worked for me. You're able to get them on the phone.
Yeah. I think I recently saw somebody post something about, don't tell people who aren't employed to, add nonprofit work to the resume. Like, they're trying to find a job. Why would you tell them to go work at a nonprofit, or, think that that's a good idea? This person's unemployed. What are they, stop doing that, recruiters. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to stop doing that, because that feeds your soul. Like, if you're helping someone, if you're doing, whether it's like a structured nonprofit, or you're just helping someone else, that makes you feel better and boosts your confidence. You've got this ability to do something for someone. You need to use that ability, especially if you have time to do it. I'm not suggesting if you're unemployed and you've got 4 kids and you're trying to make ends meet, there's just no time in your day to make it happen. But I am certainly going to suggest that if you've got downtime and you've got the ability to do it, because it bolsters your confidence. And like you said, nobody likes to hire somebody who has 0.
100%. And I think that's because I've been unemployed a few times where I was in between jobs. The most important thing is you have to manage your psychology. The moment, like when I lose my job, it was a few years ago, I was laid off. The very first thing I did was that I had to pretend that looking for a job was my job, meaning that I would wake up like I was going to work. I would get dressed like I'm going to work, and either I stayed in the house or I just moved somewhere else or I'd leave somewhere. You have to get into a routine, because the moment your brain does not have a routine, right? That's how people get into depression. They start going to bed like at 11 o'clock at night, waking up at like 10, 11 a.m. Then there's no routine. There's no purpose, right? And I think part of that is like, if you have the free time, go volunteer at a nonprofit. For me, when I was in between jobs, and I think I was in between jobs for like maybe 3 or 4 months, I started, I first let people, there's no shame in it. I was very public about it because people need to know, like, hey, I'm available. But I started just getting on the phone and advising people for free. I wasn't getting paid for it, but at least it felt like I was doing something, right?
Yep.
And I think that, networking, job search, and everything, it has to be a very proactive thing. It cannot be, let me just, pay a resume writer and send my resume out and sit back and wait. Because there's always going to be somebody who has more stamps on their resume. There's always going to be somebody who has one leg up on you. Like, that's just a losing game. Personally, like, that's why I'm not crazy about like when people apply to like really huge corporations, because they got so many applications. There's no other way than to do it that way. But again, connect with the hiring manager, find ways to stand out. Like, it has to be a very proactive thing.
Yeah. For sure. So I know you know a lot of authors. I want to end on this. Are you familiar with Dr. Benjamin Hardy?
I'm so disappointed that that's an author. I mean, there's millions of authors, but yeah,
we're
I don't know.
Talking about growing our networks, man.
Yeah, I don't know Benjamin Hardy.
Networks.
I'm looking him up right now on
Personality
Amazon.
Isn't Permanent is one of his books. He's got a newer one out, but Dr. Benjamin Hardy is somebody that you would love reading. I'm certain of it.
I'm going right now on my Amazon.
Cool.
And looking it up. Oh, I just found out. That's great. Oh, how do I not know about this book? It's got 1,200 reviews. Wow.
Yeah.
By the way, small like little pearl of wisdom. I think it's a pearl of wisdom in my opinion on books. The point of a library is that a lot of the books have not been read yet. And so what I recommend to people is, like, when you hear about a good book, don't put it in your Amazon list and be like, oh, I'll get to it when I finish this other book. Just buy the books, throw them on the shelf, because books have an energy so that when you have a question, you need something answered, you don't pick the book somehow magically picks you. There's this very like spiritual thing behind books. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Can't be replicated in an Amazon Kindle. Unfortunately, it's the physical books, but I think it's having some kind of a library, some physical books is a very important thing to do.
I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you. I'm to the point now. I'm a woodworker in my spare time.
Oh, very cool.
So I'm building a gigantic bookcase for behind my head.
That's awesome.
My wife is mad about all the books that are sitting in boxes around the house.
Oh yeah, you got to get those things out. They need to breathe a little bit.
Exactly. Man, I can't thank you enough for your time, Omar.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I'm really happy you kicked off the series. Hopefully, I can look in my network and find some good potential guests for you. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one. You're gonna do this every week with different guests, or every other week?
So the very next one is 2 weeks from yesterday.
Okay.
And Gary Fry. I don't know if you know Gary Fry.
Sounds very
Frey.
familiar. Yeah.
The dude is awesome. And I'm really looking forward to having him on as well. So this was
Awesome.
gold, Peter. Omar
Hey,
was
thanks,
gold.
Peter. Thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. Very cool. I will look for that in RSVP so I can check that out.
Awesome. Omar, thank
Fantastic.
you again, buddy. I appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, Alan. It was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all for being here.